Your vote is your voice, and your vote matters, especially during this crucial presidential election year of 2020. The question for the average Catholic voter like me is, how do I align my Catholic faith and values to go along with choosing the right political candidate? We are called to vote with a formed conscience, but what exactly does that mean? If you got questions about staying in line with your Catholic faith and voting, don't worry, I've got you covered in this very special interview. My name is Raymond Valiente with Omnia Catholic, and I'm really excited about my special guest, Matthew Pinto. He's the founder and president of Ascension and recognized leader of Catholic marketing and communication in the United States. Matthew has been in the forefront of several Catholic ministries and initiatives, which include Theology of the Body Institute and Ascension Press. He is the author of the book, Did Adam and Eve Have Belly Buttons? And Did Jesus Have a Last Name? Today, Matthew shares some of his wisdom and insight about the book released by Ascension called Clear Conscience, a Catholic Guide to Voting. This book doesn't tell you exactly who to vote for, but it provides you with the tools and the framework to form and vote with a clear conscience. I hope and pray you'll gain better insight and knowledge in this interview with Matthew Pinto. Matthew, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today.
Raymond, I'm delighted to be with you. From what I understand, you're in California. My heart breaks. Not because it's bad, but because it's so beautiful. My wife and I lived there for about 8 years. We met there in San Diego. So
really, wow.
we mourn the loss of the beauty and just size and magnificence of the state in so many ways. I know it's going through some challenging times, maybe politically, but it's a really great place, and I'm delighted to be with you today.
Appreciate that. And always know that you're always welcome back to California if you ever have that desire to come back.
Well, we'll definitely be coming back because we have a lot of friends there, at least visiting. And but if we decide to move permanently, I'll let you know. From what I understand, actually, some of the opposite seems to happen.
Yes, exactly.
But let's hope that mighty California, with its incredible history, can really kind of get back into kilter, because I know it is facing some challenges right now.
Absolutely. California is a beautiful and great state to be in, but certainly we are in some interesting times, to say the least. We've got quite a heavy topic to talk about and discuss. But before we dive deep into that, what I'd like to do first of all, say thank you for all the work that you do at Ascension. I'm a big fan of all the speakers that you have, especially with Father Mike Schmitz and with Jackie and Bobby Angel. And so thank you for all the work that you do and for the effort that you put in for the ministry to do the Lord's work.
Well, you're certainly welcome. Those of us who work in ministry full-time, as you now know, or maybe will know, it really is a blessing.
And so for our audience, just to get a little bit of background, I see that you have some pictures about there. Who do you got back behind in your background there?
Well, I got many pictures in the house. This is I'm not sure whether it's everyone's far left. I'm not sure how the video works, but
okay.
That's my wife and I. That's our wedding photo. We were married in 1994, so 26 years. We're the parents of seven children, 5 boys and 1 girl. And that other picture is our only daughter. She's 11 years old, and really we're having great fun. And the picture behind me, actually, Raymond's an interesting topic, maybe for another time. Your viewers, listeners may have heard of the Camino de Santiago, the 1,000-year-old 450-mile trek in northern Spain. Well, each time one of my sons becomes a senior in high school, the summer before, we've done the trek. So I've done the trek 3 times, and I'll do it with my 4th son this upcoming summer. We only do about 100, 125, 130 miles. So not the full 450, but the Camino is a favorite. So those are some of the pictures we got here.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for sharing it. Tell us a little bit, how was it life as a young adult for you?
Well, my young adult years, I'm not a young adult anymore, 55, but my young adult years, Raymond, were extraordinary. In fact, my sense is you might be living what I lived X number of years ago. I woke up to my Catholic faith at about age 21 after getting challenged by a very well-intended non-Catholic Christian who just in his tradition was taught that we Catholics were in spiritual danger.
Hmm.
And his challenges woke me up to my Catholic faith. I decided to learn the faith before leaving the faith. And so I went on a 3 or 4 year intellectual odyssey that was just extraordinary. It resulted in my moving to California, San Diego, to start. Eventually, I started a young adult group. So actually, we have some similarities here. And that's where the faith really kind of took off during a 4 or 5 year period of time of a young adult group down in San Diego. And then I went on to work for the church full time, Catholic Answers first, and then a series of different ministries myself after that, culminating in Ascension, which I've been running for 20 years. I founded it in 1998. Ascension, I founded it.
Well, God bless you for that little spark. And now it has grown into a fire, which is inspiring many people, not only within the US, but internationally and around the world. So that is just a wonderful ministry that you continue to do. And God bless you for saying yes for the work you do. And it's led us to this point where now we're talking not only about faith, but we're also talking about this issue of politics and the Catholic vote. With the political environment that's going on around the world right now, what is your take on it?
Whew. Well, I think that exhale was the exhale that we all kind of give just by the daily news barrage of the past number of weeks. But really, with the Trump presidency, regardless of what one thinks, I mean, it's been a news dominated presidency in so many ways. So we really live, I think, in some of the best of times and some of the worst of times. By best of times, Raymond, I would say that you really have a massive number of people in America who are interested in politics and who really are fairly well versed in a whole host of issues that perhaps 40 or 50 years ago may not have been the case. That's my sense. A lot of that is due to talk radio and the ubiquitous social media that we have. So I think we live in good times in some regards. We also live in very rough times. As you and I know, it's very contentious. But one thing I would encourage your viewers and listeners is the more you read and study history, including US history, it likely will calm you down in the sense that you'll come to see that there have been times in our history that have been equally challenging and maybe even worse. For example, in the election in the year 1876 with Rutherford Hayes and Samuel Tilden, that particular presidential election came down to one electoral vote, and it had to get kicked up to the Supreme Court. And this is immediately after slavery and shortly after slavery. And it was incredibly contentious. Rutherford Hayes eventually won. He was the Republican, but he rolled back the Republican efforts to end slavery for the next 100 years until 1964. He rolled back the Reconstruction effort that was underway to help Black Americans. And then in 1964, the Civil Rights Movement, also put forth, ironically, by the Republicans, came back and began to restore things. So, in short, I say to anyone, read history. I mean, if you read the whole 1776 and that whole time period, I mean, these were incredible times. So our times are unique, but really we're seeing a lot of repeat of history right now as well.
Indeed. It is for sure to say that we are living in historical moments. Would you agree?
I do. But I would say, don't get too flustered, everyone, that this is the most contentious presidential election. I think it might be the most important or top 2 or 3 most important election because of the trajectory of the country. There really is a dividing line in the sense of, are we going to move in the direction of bigger government or perhaps more individual freedom? I'm not making an opinion right now on that. I think the church would tend to lean in the direction of individual freedom as long as there was a safety net of some sort. But the takeaway is, there have been times that have been more contentious. Anyone
Mm.
who has seen the Broadway show or the movie Hamilton, you heard references to gunfights and gunfights even on the White House back lawn.
Oh, wow.
And so there have been times that have been even more contentious than the ones that we're living in now.
Oh, that is for sure. But definitely, we know that in the end of what comes out is that the Lord is still with us,
Yes.
through these times. I want to talk a little bit book called The Clear Conscience, which came out, and you give some really awesome and very useful tools for the average lay Catholic like me to help frame the how to vote. Um, and you talk about some key principles and key concepts in this book. Uh, what would those key concepts be as that we would need to know when we're going into making a vote, especially during during this election?
A little clarification: I was one of the editors on the book.
Oh, the editors. Okay.
We issued it as a body,
Okay.
an individual person, because we didn't want necessarily to have an individual person who would be associated with any particular
Sure.
party.
Sure.
And so we really wanted to write it with the mind of the church, with the catechism, the scripture, and just plain old common sense. So sure, there are some principles that we put forth. The first principle, I would say, Raymond, may surprise people, and it's that the church actually gives us extraordinary freedom on our own to really make up our mind, meaning there are only a few issues where the church says, no, 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 we can't compromise on X, Y, and Z. But you, average Catholic, are really free to differ with other good Catholics on issues of economics, issues of immigration, issues of gun rights. Catholics in good conscience, formed consciences, can disagree with other Catholics, and both can be Catholics in good standing. But there are some issues where if you're on the wrong side, you are out of step with the mind of Christ, who is God, and the church, which is the very bride of Christ, the means that he established here on earth to teach and sanctify and govern in his name. So the first principle I want to share is that the church gives us great latitude. And here's the pragmatic reason why that is the case. I mean, can you imagine, Raymond, if you and I, on every issue or every substantive issue or quasi-substantive issue, we had to stop what we were doing, go and make an appointment with the bishop, and then discuss gun rights with the bishop? And no, the church really wants the laity to be nimble and quick, so we can be leaven in society. We can really be that active ingredient, that active agent. And the only way to do that is to really put the majority of issues back on us. But we should have a faith that is a conscience that is by faith, deferential to the natural law,
Mhm.
always keeping in mind the common good, and with the proper formation in our mind. The laity don't have to go to the bishop on every serious or semi-serious or even moderate issue. So the church wants to empower us. That's issue number one, that we have a lot more
Mhm.
freedom than the average person realizes. A second concept, and I'm just going to name three,
Sure.
because there are three big issues, and they really provide guardrails for us. The second is that there is a difference, and this is key for your listeners and your viewers, that there is a difference between issues of prudential judgment, again, where Catholics of good conscience can disagree. Like, we can disagree on economic policy.
Mhm.
You may tend to like a smaller government and think that that's ultimately better for the people, rooted in freedom. Or you tend to may think that a bigger government and more government spending and more taxation is better, tax people more and then give more government services. People of goodwill can disagree there, although the church does give some boundaries there as well. You can't encroach on freedom of property, and
Mhm.
people have to have the right to self-actualization. Um, but the point I'm making is issues of prudential judgment versus issues that are immutable or immutable, cannot be transgressed moral laws. For example, Raymond, under no condition can you and I have a public platform where we would put forth that bringing back slavery is a
Mm.
viable idea. For example, Matt Pinto, let's say, is great, or John Doe is great on 12 issues, great on immigration, great on gun rights, whatever the case may be, economics, but he's pro-slavery. End of story at that point. Or someone might be great on 10 issues, but really, their platform allows for, human sex trafficking. At that point, any reasonable person would say, wait a second, no, you can't do that. Well, we have issues of prudential judgment, and then we have immutable truths, immutable moral laws. And one of those laws, in fact, the preeminent of all of them, even before slavery, even before sex trafficking, is the issue of abortion. Why? Because if you do not even get to take your first breath, then all other issues really are secondary.
Yeah.
Also, with those other issues, the persons involved likely have a chance at bettering their life and getting out of their state. Whereas if you're dead after that first breath or before that first breath, you have no opportunity. And I just think, Raymond, here's the key, I think. I think we have been so breathing the air of abortion being normative for 40 or 50 years or 60 years. I'd have to do the math. 57 years or so, or 47 years, that I think it's really just become not as striking or dramatic, as the reality is. And so therefore we've accepted it as a people. And I think if we were to all be reminded as to really what an abortion is and actually what happens, and maybe even see, the footage of what happens, and see that beating heart, I think it would give us pause. I just think we've lost our certain sensitivity to it because it's become so commonplace and part of really part of our whole life if you're 50 years old and below. So prudential judgment versus immutable laws. And I humbly say this to those who are watching right now. I don't say this as an imposition. I simply say it as a, God willing, sober Catholic voice. There are many issues with both candidates that you might like, but the right to life trumps, and I don't mean to use that word Trump, it just happens to be the word I'm using, supersedes all other issues. And I really wasn't being cute there by
no problem.
Trump. It's just the word choice. So prudential judgment versus immutable laws. And then the third principle, and I know I've been going on here, but hopefully it's helpful.
Absolutely, no problem.
The church really has this fabulous concept called solidarity and then subsidiarity. And solidarity and subsidiarity really are like guardrails to help us kind of even form economic policies and other policies. And what they are in a nutshell is solidarity is the concept that you and I, Raymond, we've never met in person. You're in California, I'm in Philadelphia. But you and I, through our Catholic faith and our common existence in the human race, have a solidarity that we should pursue the common good for as many as possible, that we should help the poor, we should help those in need, we should help those who are persecuted. We have solidarity. And typically, those on the left, let's say maybe even, let's say the Democratic Party, tends to lean in that direction of solidarity. And the Republican Party often leans in the direction of subsidiarity. And what subsidiarity is, that they may agree with solidarity, but they would say that solidarity should best be handled at the local level. Frankly, you know what's going on in Los Angeles better than I do, and I know what's going on in Philadelphia better than you do. And if you live in the town of Ventura, I don't fully know, you know what's going on in your hometown better than government officials in the wider Los Angeles area. So subsidiarity is that, and really the church, posits this, that things should be handled best at the most proximate level, because you're likely most going to be in tune with the true needs. So where the church is it balances solidarity and subsidiarity. And we Catholics on the other issues beyond the most prominent and most important issues of life, we can disagree on how to balance those, but those are guardrails of balancing solidarity and subsidiarity, and it can be done. We can be attentive to the human person, but also attentive to doing it mostly at the most proximate level.
Yeah. Well, fascinating. That is just some great terminology that for us young adults to know: prudential, immutable laws, subsidiary, and solidarity. And to our audience, make sure we use that as our framework to help guide our voting.
As a Catholic, really, you should desire among all things to think with the mind of Christ. And as Catholics, there are a panoply of issues that are affronts or jeopardize human dignity. But there are really a hierarchy of issues as well, based on the immediate danger that some of those issues pose to constituencies. So again, there are prudential judgment issues, but then there are immutable law issues. And I would say that we really should consider the fact that life is the preeminent issue, life at its earliest stages, because none of the other issues ultimately matter if you're not here to pursue them. And so it's a leap of faith on the part of some of your listeners, I realize. But I do believe that if we're faithful to the Lord, we read in the Old Testament, I put before you life and death, choose life. I believe if we're faithful in this particular matter, that we will have a certain harmony in our heart. It may not be a perfect harmony simply because of what's in our ears from the culture, the nonstop issues. But I would contend that if we take that leap of faith, we will have a peace that, at least at times, defies all understanding.
Amen. Definitely, we're going to need a lot of prayer and a lot of just guidance from God to help us make this decision. Knowing that change starts internally, and prayer being our cornerstone, is there any tips as far as with praying for wisdom during this election season, like how we can really make that vote?
Yeah, yeah. Well, absolutely. One should pray for wisdom, the most sublime and beautiful gift that I think the Lord gives us, with the exception of His very self in the sacraments. I would say that the the intellect, very often, Raymond, we operate in the realm of sentimentality, emotion here.
Yeah.
And I would remind people in your prayer and in your discernments that the highest natural gift that we have as human beings, natural gift, not supernatural gift, is our intellect. And so one bit of counsel, in addition to, bringing these issues to prayer, is to really watch out for emotional voting. You may not like a particular candidate personally, but I would ask people to move to a different level of maturity and ask yourself, I got it. I don't like this particular person. Candidate X, I might think he's old and feeble. Candidate Y, I may think he shoots from the hip and is coarse. Removing those aside, what are the policies that the persons are putting forth? And then here's key. Don't just look at the policies in the here and now, but extrapolate a bit and ask yourself, what are going to be the policies and their effects 5 years from now, 10 years from now for my children? And do I want a country that is moving in the direction of, X, Y, or Z? So in short, be on guard against sentimentality, overly emotive forms of existence. Your highest faculty is your intellect. Through prayer and discernment and discussion, we can't even have discussions nowadays, which is a real problem. This cancel culture where some people can't even bring up ideas on college campuses, for example. That's a real problem. So look out for sentimentality. Look a little bit more long-term than the immediate here and now. Like some people might say, I just can't have this particular president anymore. Okay, but why? I mean, let's move it to the realm of policy versus sentimentality. Or I don't want that particular president. Perhaps in the case of the Democratic nominee, because I just don't like him. I'm sorry, that's not it really needs to move to the realm of that which is more substantive.
Some more substance. Wow. A lot to take in these next few weeks before the vote. Actually, the vote has already begun with the mail-in ballot, but certainly we still have the time to really reflect, to study, and investigate. And to our audience, don't forget, again, Clear Conscience is the book that you want to pick up to help you guide your way in regards to voting. Matt, there's so much more I would wish that I could get to, but we are running out of time. And if people want to get more information on you, information on your books, where can they find you?
They could just Google my name, Matthew Pinto, and Ascension, or Matthew Pinto and Catholic, and or you can reach Ascension at evangelization.com. You can that takes you right to one of our pages, or ascensionpress.com. And but there's a whole host of words that one can Google. If you want to text us, we have a simple number, 33, the age of our Lord, 777. You can text us the word Catholic to that, and we will pull you into our world, and you'll hear what we're up to. 33777, the word Catholic.
All right. Thank you so much. Matt, before I let you go, what I'd like to do with all our guests is we like to ask some fun questions, especially after this heavy topic that we discussed about. And these are what I call flash 5 questions, just to get for our audience to get to know you better. Are you ready?
Fair enough.
All right. Your favorite food is?
Pizza.
Pizza. All right. Your favorite hobby is?
Well, it used to be skateboarding. I used to be a serious skateboarder.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I like music. I like walking. I do 2, sometimes 3 walks a day, and I listen to music. And I'm a child of the 80s, so I like I like the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. I like most music, but music and walking.
If you could have a cup of coffee with one saint, who would it be?
Well, I do love my patron, Matthew, and
Saint Matthew, yes, the tax collector.
But Thomas More is the one I think I'm most fascinated with, and Raymond, I think the reason why is Thomas More reached the heights of temporal power. He was the right-hand man of Henry VIII, and I run Ascension Press. We have 60 or 65 or so employees, and so I'm faced with difficult decisions at times. But when I put it in perspective as to what it must have been like to be at the right-hand man of the most powerful nation in the world at the time, number 1 or number 2, and to then make the choice that he made to stay with the church, knowing that his life would be taken, really has always amazed me, the way he married sanctity with temporal responsibility. I was able to sit inside his cell in the Tower of London. We got a private tour, myself and 2 or 3 others, where we were able to sit there for like 20 minutes. And I really could have stayed there for 6, 7 hours praying and just communing with St. Thomas More, talking to him and asking advice on life. So Thomas More.
Thomas More, for sure. What a great example for us Catholics, especially today. If you had the gift of bilocation, where would you bilocate to? California.
Yeah. California for 30 years ago in San Diego.
Okay.
It was pristine. Wow. Do I have to stay in this year, or can I go to another century?
You can go another century if you'd like.
Okay. Well, I'm always intrigued with the 1950s in America, and that whole post-war, from that TV show Happy Days. I'm always intrigued with that, that 1950s dance pop culture. But if we're in the here and now, I'd like to be transported to the Camino. I'm looking forward to that walk.
Go for that walk, and maybe go the full distance, right?
I do plan at some point in my life. I do think I'll do the full distance. Maybe the Vatican as well. I want to go to Ireland too. So.
Absolutely. And final question. If there's one public figure to evangelize the gospel to, who would it be?
Oof. Well, I would say the presidential, whoever assumes the presidency, whether it's the Republican candidate or the Democratic candidate, oh my goodness, if we had a full Catholic heart that was pursuing sanctity, because I do believe that America is the city set on the hill. I still believe that we are the leader of the free world and that our influence is massive. And so as America goes, so much of the world is affected because of our wealth and influence. And so I would love whoever the ultimate one elected is to richly think with the mind of the church. And so I would say to those who are watching, you know, who might be that person who has the track record in at least recent years, I would say, of standing up for life and standing up for the individual. And so that's who I would want. I would want our president, whoever that ends up being, to be the one most sanctified.
Who you'd want to reach out and talk to. Well, we'll definitely find out in the short upcoming weeks for sure. And all eyes for sure are going to be around the world, going to be on this election. And so, Matthew, thank you so much for just your time, your input, your insight. It's going to be, we are so grateful for your time and just being with us today and sharing all this wonderful information that we need to hear as young adult Catholics.
Yeah, and thank you for all that you're saying yes to and the platform that you're building. May the Lord bless your efforts and magnify your efforts. And so thank you for your yes as well, Raymond.
Yes. Thank you. And to our audience, thank you so much again for tuning in. And don't forget to pick up the book, Clear Conscience. Until next time, everyone, God bless, and we'll see you next time.